Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode of 105 today for the Austrian Grand Prix in Season 6. If you guys did miss the previous one, then be sure to go check that one out. A very tasty race at the Canadian Grand Prix. Got oh so close to having a pit lane entry crash, and of course it was rather chaotic at the end. We tried to go for gold, the kind of very bold, daring strategy of pitting for intermediates, and to be honest, if we had one more lap in that race, I really think it would have worked. We almost got the glory, couldn't quite do it. The biggest win was we still came away with more points than any of our rivals. So even though we kind of lost out on maybe potentially going for the race win in second place, it was a fantastic 1-2, I must say. Very surprising one and an insane one for Racing Point in the Aston Martin livery, of course, for the last 2 seasons. But, you know, we still gained on Leclerc, Gasly, Norris, so it was still a very good day in the office for us, actually. And again, it drilled home the point that we're still lacking any backup from our teammate. Hamilton, I think, came away with even less than P7. I think it was P10, and so he's way down in P12, and you can see the gap we've got to Ferrari and even Mercedes is still a little bit high. And, you know, even if he just scored a few more points, if he was where Sainz or Stroll was in the championship, he'd be doing a lot better for us as a teammate. So, you know, I asked the question last episode, should we look at replacing him? It seemed like a resounding majority of you were for looking at replacement, so I'm going to let it simmer a little bit. Of course, we don't have to make a decision quite yet, but it's definitely something I'm leaning toward, because otherwise it's going to be very, very difficult to really go for the Constructors' Championship, which is, of course, important. In my team, it's not just about the Drivers' Championship, it's obviously in the name of the game mode, but, you know, because I own the team, nowadays in the F1 game, we care about the Constructors a lot more than we may have done on previous F1 games, and so to win that championship against Ferrari, against Merc, we're going to need someone that's scoring more points, really, ideally, you think. So it's something definitely to keep on thinking about, and it's obviously something we'll just assess as we go on, and I believe in the next episode or two, that is when we're going to have to make the decision. But we go into the Austrian Grand Prix leading the championship with a decent cushion, so individually, I'm actually quite happy as it's gone so far in the first kind of third of the season. As we go towards the Austrian Grand Prix race weekend, you may have seen in the background, whilst I was discussing the kind of teammate situation, we actually did receive a free engine upgrade from Mercedes. Obviously, the power unit manufacturer can give you upgrades over the season. It's just a waiting game of when those come in. And so far, up till now, Mercedes and Racing Point have actually been ahead of us firmly on the engine chart, even though we have the same engine, of course. But finally, now we've got one more ultimate upgrade that's come to the car, and we're now actually level pegging with the Mercedes Works team in terms of pure engine power, and Racing Point are actually now below both of us. So that's going to be a bit of a power shift, maybe, because definitely I think Racing Point have been flexing the muscles of their engine in the recent race to show some performance as of late, and an uptick in performance. And at a circuit like this where power means a lot, it's going to be important. And into Q1, the car feeling very hooked up, at least for myself, and we go sub 1 minute here, which feels absolutely amazing. The car was really gripping up quite nicely, although I say that going into Q2, I really wish that was the same thing. A few lockups here and there, and the front end just not as nailed in Q2 as it was in Q1. You can see it's a bit more overcast, so I don't know if the track conditions have changed a bit and the temperatures maybe played around with how much grip there was on circuit, but for some reason I just couldn't go as quick as I was going in Q1 in Q2. It's still not a bother. We're still going to be comfortably into the top 10 shootout, but we're missing a few tenths now in comparison to Q1, and we don't know how much quicker our competitors are going to get. You know, the two Works Mercedes cars are there, 3 and 4, looking strong, but Hamilton is right up there with me in P2, so our car is equally looking very good. Unfortunately for Red Bull at their home race, it's not looking great. The two AlphaTauris are through, but the two Red Bulls, woeful stuff. One of them's been knocked out in Q2 for the last 2 races, and now both of them are knocked out, as well as Antonio Giovinazzi and Ocon. So a very volatile Q2 where both Racing Points have made it in, only one Ferrari and one McLaren, both AlphaTauris, which is surprising and a little bit embarrassing for the Red Bull outfit at the Red Bull ring. So Q3 will be interesting, and also the race. Let's see how the Red Bulls do it, if they can recover from that position. But ever since that win that Sainz got, which now I'm thinking was very much a fluke win, they've just been going down and down and down in terms of their luck, but also just general outright performance. But here we are then into the top 10 shootout, looking to try and aim for the front row pole position. I don't know, we've done well in the last 2 races. We've had a pole and a second place, so can we go for another front row or the pole? Because obviously Obviously, we look very, very strong in Q1. Let's see as we go towards across the line. At the moment, it is only P3. Alexander Albon on provisional pole. Leclerc up in P2. Hamilton just behind Norris there. The two Mercedes cars, we're right at the end of the session. We've got less than 30 seconds left. And the two Mercedes cars are not even in the top 5. What's going on here? So it's going to be a very weird sprint to the line, I guess, in the last portion of this shootout. As we come through the final corner, everyone set better lap times there. We're down to P7 across the line. We gained some time in the last sector, about a 10th or so, up into P4 it is, but we can't quite match what we did in Q1. We're about a 10th or 2 off that, but Lando Norris comes out of nowhere for a second pole position in a row, and it's a lightning lap from him, and also, to be fair, Max Verstappen, both of them under 1 minute around Austria. But like I said, for some reason, I just couldn't match that Q1 time. The front end wasn't there. We were losing time in Sector 2. I thankfully gained it back in Sector 3 on that last lap, so that got us up into the second row alongside Alexander Albon, who's done a fantastic job in the racing point to say his teammates way down in P10. So very odd. And Stroll's definitely been the stronger of the pairing for the last season or so, to see him right up there. Gasly P5, okay for him, and looks like Leclerc, he tried his best, but he's kind of in no man's land in P6, just ahead of Hamilton and the two AlphaTauri. So intriguing. Verstappen obviously had a DNF last episode. He's had a lot of bad luck really for the last 3 episodes, so he's going to want to try and make a bit of a kind of comeback in this race of sorts. And obviously we've seen Norris and Stroll fight so many times. Norris is right up there, Stroll down in P10. It's going to be a bit topsy-turvy with a few cars making up positions, and I'm sure Austria is always a very great race. It has been for the last 3 seasons we've done in this series. So let's go to the grids and see what we can do from the second row.
Good afternoon and welcome to Spielberg, and to a circuit that in one form or another has held every Austrian Grand Prix in the championship, except the very first back in 1964. It was at this race that John Watson lost a bet and his beard when he took Team Penske's only F1 victory in 1976. If anything, the stakes are even higher today, with 25 points available for victory and a crucial advantage in the championship fight. The Spielberg circuit then is situated 700 metres above sea level, with just 10 corners making up one of the shortest laps of the season. One time around here is a distance of 2.6 miles, with the best overtaking chances into turn 1 or the tight uphill turn 3. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Albon, the owner driver, Pierre Gasly and Leclerc, Hamilton, De Vries, Bottas and Lance Stroll, Ocon, Giovinazzi, Carlos Sainz and Ricciardo, Kvyat, Matsushita, George Russell and Jack Aitken. Giotto, Latifi, Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head to trackside for today's race.
Okay, so this time no grid penalties, unlike the last race where it kind of demoted Gasly to kind of be struggling in traffic. So it is going to be a straight out fight between everyone here that qualified in the top 10. We're still in the second row then alongside Alexander Albon, Verstappen and Norris looking very quick ahead of us. But I think race pace, we've always been quite strong. And this race is going to be interesting because we do have a very, fine margin between which one is quicker, the 2 or the 1 stop, especially in a season like this where the tyre wear has seemed a little bit more awkward for the entire grid. And you can see theoretically, even with the numbers here that the strategy is telling us, the 2 stops only a few seconds slower in theory. But if you were to get held up in traffic doing the 1 stop, or a tyre wear hits you a little bit harder, the 2 stop can come back in, vice versa, you could get held up in traffic on a 2 stop. So it's going to be quite fine. I'm not too sure what we're going to do yet. I'm going to go with the 2 stop right now, select that, and then on the fly I'll see what everyone else is doing and kind of react to that. I think that's the best way to go about it, especially at such a short circuit like this. We can afford to be a bit more reactive rather than planning it out kind of long term. But we start this race ahead of most of our major rivals in the championship so far this season, so we're already doing a decent job. But let's try and see what we can do today then, as far lights are out and we're underway for the Austrian Grand Prix. And it's a sluggish start from both Norris and Verstappen. Albon round the outside. It's 3 abreast into turn 1 for the race lead. Hamilton's made a good stop round the outside, but no, Hamilton spun us into the wall and the front wing is off, and I'm trapped. I can't reverse. I'm stuck between Hamilton and the wall, and that is an absolute disaster for this team. Lewis Hamilton has taken us out. Our teammate, our underperforming teammate, has taken us out, and we are now last and second last at the Austrian Grand Prix. This is an absolute shocker. This is an embarrassment here for the team. And Hamilton, what on earth was he doing? Turning into me. He had such a great start. Let's have a look at the replay. So he actually got Leclerc off the line, had a big old dive on the outside of Gasly. He got held up and bunched in. And then here, he just starts turning into me. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. He literally just starts turning in, and there's a certain point in that crash and spin where I simply can't countersteer anymore. I'm trying to countersteer here, turning right, but he's already turned into me so much that my car is going round whether I like it or not. And so is that maybe, I talked about, making decisions on Hamilton. Is that the final nail in the coffin? Is this now the spark in the chamber that makes us pull the trigger to get rid of him? Because he's underperforming, and now he's taken us out, which is going to hurt us not only as a team, but individually as well. As we go green again, it was only unfortunately a virtual safety car for that spin. So we've not been helped out whatsoever, because we're having to now pit for the damage we've got, and it's full green flag racing. Hamilton is stayed out. He's not got damage apparently, but he has got a 5-second penalty for spinning us out. So the FI have deemed that was his fault for sure, and he's got a penalty for it. Not that I'm that happy about it, because there's a detriment to our team for him to get a penalty. So even if he goes on to get some points, he might fall back now with that penalty that he'll probably serve in a pit stop, to be fair, actually thinking about it. But we've come in now, have to change the front wing, and we are now miles back. We're 24 seconds behind Hamilton, and Hamilton is down in P18. So just imagine how far the leaders are going to be as we go on through this race. So this is going to be a very long one. Strap yourselves in. We've got 33 laps left of the Austrian Grand Prix. We send one now down the inside of Kevin Magnussen, trying to recover in this race. And look at the top left. Looks like Ricciardo and Gasly also got held up or had some sort of kerfuffle in the opening lap, because they also pit with me just after the virtual safety car ended. So Gasly and Ricciardo are also trying to come back in this race. So Gasly's not really had a great time of it. 2 races in a row now he's had to come back from lower positions. Obviously last race it was a grid penalty. This time it's an issue on lap 1. And now as we move on to lap number 7, pushing just as hard as I can at the moment. Not too pacey on the top right, you can see, but still gaining some time on Ricciardo. But look at the top left. Carlos Sainz has had a DNF. Now unfortunately didn't capture him retiring, but it was just a bog standard engine failure, so to be fair would have been that interesting for you guys to see on the replay cameras. But yeah, so he's had a mechanical failure. So it's a horrendous day in the office for not only ourselves at Aarava Racing, but also it seems like Red Bull Racing at their home Grand Prix, because Ricciardo's down in the bottom 4 and Sainz is out. So it's pretty it's a tough time for them, as their junior team AlphaTauri are sailing a lot higher than they are at the moment. But as we try and do our best then of catching up to Ricciardo and Gasly and then the rest of the grid, we've got a fight right at the sharp end. Verstappen and Lando Norris, the 2 men on the front row, and they swap positions. Norris was in the lead from the get-go, but Verstappen's now got him around the outside. Can the Brit come back around the outside? Has a little look. Verstappen goes defensive. No change there. Verstappen remains in the lead then. 3rd place is Albon. Then you've got Leclerc being pressurized quite a bit there by Ocon. But we now move a little bit even further into this first stint of this race, and we're focusing on Pierre Gasly, who's in some traffic now. So he's caught up to the kind of bottom pack, at least, the likes of the Williams, Haas, Alfa Romeo, and he's getting past the Haas of Mick Schumacher there on the left-hand side. DRS wide open. The same for Ricciardo, trying to make his way in the background, but we've caught up to him as Gasly goes sailing around the outside. We've caught the Australian, but we're still down in P20. So, it's been a fair few laps since we made the pit stop, and we're only now getting to some overtakes here. So it really is going to be a long day in the office to try and recover this into some points. But down the inside we go of Ricciardo, who pits onto a set of soft tyres, which is interesting because, you would say if you're pitting on lap 1, you'd want to go a lot longer into the race. So I don't know why he's done that. Gasly's done the same, but obviously Gasly in the Mercedes car has a lot more pace than the Red Bull shown in recent races. So it kind of makes more sense for Gasly to do that. But I don't know why Ricciardo has tried to be a bit bold with that kind of tyre choice. Cause we now go to the inside of Luca Giotto in the Williams. Schumacher gets squeezed out by Latifi. We make a nice little switch left to right under his rear wing and going to try and finish off the move into turn 1. So actually, this is very decent for us. 3 moves made in quick succession in about half a lap there. Now, it's going to be 4 moves here as we catch on to Latifi, who's going to give us a good old squeeze to the right there, dipping a tyre just about onto the grass to make it past him on the right, up into P13. So actually, if you look at it, we're making some really good progress. Now, remember, though, these are all the slower cars that we're going to definitely get past very, very rapidly, because in this season, things may be super close with the kind of top 6 teams, but the remaining 4 are very slow, a lot slower than the entire top pack is. So there's that massive difference. And also, whilst we overtook the Haas of Schumacher, I believe both racing points had come in for their pit stops, or at least one racing point and another top car in the top pack. So we've gained some free positions that we're yet to kind of really, we're going to have to see how it shakes out, basically, because we're out of sync now of everyone in terms of the race strategy. But for now, on the road as it stands, I'll take being P12 on the road, but we're gonna have to be patient to see where we filter out to, if you know what I mean. But we made a fantastic move that was on Jack Aitken just then on the outside of sector 2, and now we're into turn 1, chasing after Gasly. Meanwhile, up the road, Hamilton closing up to George Russell, who's ahead of him at the moment in the Alfa Romeo car. And you know what? I saw a fair few of you guys maybe suggesting we look at, the likes of Russell or other drivers, and as I said just earlier, when we were kind of, reacting to that horrendous lap 1, is this race, is that, incident, now is that going to be it? Is that it for us? I think it kind of is. I think we have to look at replacing him, because he's not scoring us points, and now he's taking us out. So can we really stand that, as now we see the race leader, or the man in second place, at least it was fighting for the race lead, Lando Norris. He's going to be out of the Austrian Grand Prix. Engine failure for him, and so this Austrian Grand Prix has become a bit of a car breaker. We've had Sainz going out with an engine failure, Lando Norris out, and the full course safety car has come out now, and that's really awkward timing for me and Gasly, because we actually crossed the last corner as the yellow flag came out, as the safety car got deployed. So we're actually going to be ahead of the safety car on track here. It's going to have to wait up to try and pick Verstappen up, because you can see there it literally just exited the pit lane. And Hamilton, our teammate, he was actually in the pit lane as the safety car came out, so maybe he's going to gain a little bit of advantage, but I don't know how much really, because he's going to have to now wait for everyone to be caught up with the safety car. And there's Verstappen. It's such a short lap that Verstappen's literally on the other side of the circuit. He's yet to pit in this Grand Prix, so he's going to come in and get a free pit stop, as will the Racing Point car of Alexander Albon, who was in third place, now promoted up into second. And the same with, looks like Ocon, Leclerc's in, Stroll's in, which is weird, because I'm pretty sure one of the Racing Points did come in for a pit stop. Maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it was some other car. And now me and Gasly are coming round towards the final bend. Gasly's going to opt not to come in, and we do the same. Now, for Gasly, it's a bit of a trickier situation, because he's on softs. So if I was him, I would have come in, but we are on mediums. We've still got a fair amount of this race to go on these mediums, and the thing is, I don't think the hards are a very good race tyre around here, especially not with the levels of tyre wear and how weird the tyres have been this season. The hard tyre, I just don't want to be on it, basically. So we've stayed out, and so we're going to bunch up, obviously, under the safety car. So we've recovered really well already in this race. We're only about, just over a third of this through this race now, and we're already back into the top 10. So from here, it's a question from P9, where can we go from here, rather than, thinking we're still kind of low back down at the very tail end of the grid. So we've already done very well, actually, to recover from a spin and facing backwards, being 25 seconds back from our teammate who is down in P18. Very well indeed. But from here now, the plan will be trying to go as long as we can on these tyres to try and give us some really fresh mediums at the end to really chase after and hammer home some fast laps of the Grand Prix and try and gain as many positions that way at the end, whilst those guys on hard are maybe going to be a bit slower, because it's not a great race tyre around Austria. I know that. We've never really been a big fan of the one-stop around this circuit on this game. It's never really been the one for us, and so I'd rather do this strategy. But for Gasly, it is a bit weird that he didn't come in, because on softs, he's not going to go very long. He'll probably pit in on the lap after the safety car comes in, basically. So it's a bit of an odd one for him, but I guess, each to their own, basically. I'm not going to complain about that, because that's going to be more points for us at the end of the day versus one of our rivals in the standing. But now we're looking to go green here. Verstappen leads the way then in this race, I believe. A little bit wide there on the restart, but we are green from P9 on mediums, and Verstappen does indeed lead from Albon to Ocon now it is in the only McLaren in this race. Leclerc, though, right up underneath his wing, and then look at the amount of traffic behind there, as I think there's a lapped car that has to get out of the way. Yeah, we've got blue flags there as Ocon defends, and you've got the Haas. Look at that Haas out of nowhere trying to re-overtake a car that he's been lapped by Magnussen. Don't know what he's doing, and we get caught up behind Gasly, just being patient because I don't want to get my nose caught in somewhere where it doesn't need to be. Magnussen finally gets out of the way, and we've also got, I think that's the Alfa Romeo, one of the Alfa Romeos, I think it's Russell, who's yet to pit in this Grand Prix from the first stint, I think, and he's still out there on soft tyres. Absolute madman, Russell, trying a bit of a bold strategy and holding up Giovinazzi, held up the other Racing Point car of Stroll. I think he's passed now. Yes, he is. And so now Gasly's in, Russell's in, and we go around the outside of him. So, yeah, like I said, what did I say? Gasly on the softs, Russell on the softs. I don't know why they both didn't come in under the safety car, because unlike myself, they could not go any longer. The tyre we're on soft tyres is way too high to make it go any longer. But for my mediums, I'm confident we should be able to take them probably a good 5 or 6 more laps, really. And so it's all eyes on this top fight. And I've just noticed that Verstappen here, he's behind Ocon. So what's going on here? Ocon was in P4. Now it looks like he's in P3 with Leclerc in P2. And this is why a replay at turn 1. This was whilst Gasly was coming in on that same lap, literally. Verstappen makes an error there, an AI mistake, and he's let past 3 cars. So it's going to be Albon that leads the way in Austria then. Leclerc up into second place. Ocon in a lofty third after having a very bad run of form. The Frenchman in the McLaren doing quite well. But Albon, I mean, take a bow. He had such a great race at Canada, making his way from P14, was it, up to P2. And he now leads the Austrian Grand Prix. Leclerc in P2. The Ferrari man yet to win this season, but it's second in the championship. And right now he's going to gain a load of points on me. But now Ocon spun! Oh my god, Ocon spun! And we're on lap 19, and we just about avoided him as we go to the right-hand side. And we actually gained 2 free positions there because Giovinazzi let off the throttle on the left-hand side of him to kind of give him some room. We kept our foot in, and we just kind of went for it and absolutely sent it to the inside. It could have been quite nasty, to be honest. So I kind of flirted with death there in terms of a DNF, because look how close this is going to end up being as we pause the replay. Oh my word. Look how close Ocon's wing and front left tyre is to my side pod. I absolutely sent it, and I got rewarded, to be fair, as we got 2 free overtakes there. Only 2 laps later, only 2 laps after Verstappen made a mistake. Ocon makes a huge one. We look back at that replay, I mean, he just gets a massive tank slapper. We've seen it happen before in previous seasons where these AI get a few little twitches on the rear end. Usually happens when they've got DRS open, but Ocon just makes a massive error without DRS, just in the middle of a flat-out corner. And so 2 big mistakes there. We gained a lot from Ocon's one, but now Verstappen, he's looking a bit slow right now. He's under pressure from Lance Stroll, and he's really struggling on those hard tyres. The Racing Point seemingly doing a little bit better on the white wall tyre, and he goes for the move, Stroll does, round the outside. Last race's winner on the long way round. Verstappen, though, very defensive, and those 2 fighting is great news for me because they're holding each other up so much that we're there. Look at the background. We're there and shot on the same straight, as well as Giovinazzi, to be fair. To say that Giovinazzi let off the throttle so much in that Ocon spin, he's actually right behind us, to be fair. So the Italian's still in this race, I would say, as he's 1 second back. But up the road, look at that. They're side by side into turn 1, and look how much time they're about to lose. They literally lost half a second there just squabbling into turn 1, and we're right here now on lap 21. The sun is completely died out. It's so overcast. I wonder, are these colder conditions where the sun's not here, the track's getting a bit cooler, maybe this is really hurting everyone on hard tyres and playing into our mediums here that are worn out at this stage, but they're performing still a bit better than these rotten hards, it would seem, that have no race pace. If we have a little half attempt to overtake Verstappen, in the end we get a bit of a reality check. Maybe you can't go waltzing round him. We've still got some very worn mediums, but we're doing our best to really be on the back of him. And clearly, compared to the Racing Point of Stroll ahead of him, Verstappen is really struggling to find any grip on these white wall hards. So we've got a very interesting phase of this Grand Prix. We're up into P5 now. I've only noticed, actually, Verstappen's also got a penalty for, I'm not even too sure. I don't know whether he got a penalty for coming back on track dangerously when he went wide, or, you know, maybe he got a penalty for clashing with Stroll. I don't really know when he got that exactly, but he's got a penalty, so that will maybe be played playing into this race as we go on the outside, though, and he is just so slow on those hards that now Giovinazzi has overtaken him on the exit of turn 1. Verstappen, the Mercedes team, they're hating those hards. We're now in on lap 22. It's still so overcast. It almost looks like it's going to rain. I mean, that would be quite something in this manic race that we've already had, if there's some rain at the end of this thing to spice it up even more. I'm kind of hoping not, since we're making a pit stop here for another set of medium tyres, but we're in. But this is very encouraging. The Mercedes car, at least, looks like, at least of Verstappen's, he's really hurting on those hards. Doesn't look like the Ferrari of Giovinazzi's that quick on the hards either. The racing points do look good. Albon, I think, is still leading the way ahead of Leclerc, and Stroll clearly has some pace over Verstappen, so we might not be able to do much on them. But Giovinazzi and Verstappen, I think we can catch back up to them for sure. And as we come out of the pit lane, we come out well ahead of Gasly and Russell, who made that pit stop right after the safety car for those hard tyres. So, in my opinion, we really have made the best call for us. Now, I really think it's time to lick our lips a little bit, because if we can get our head down and just have consistent pace on these mediums, I actually think with these colder conditions, with the overcast condition, we've got the pace here to not only come back and recover this extra pit stop compared to these guys in this part of the race, but also go on and get further positions than the P5 that we got. And we've set the fast lap of the Grand Prix despite not setting a purple sector, which was a little bit odd to me, but we overtake De Vries then in the AlphaTauri, give him a bit of a squeeze because he's actually quite quick in a straight line, it would seem. But we're up into P7. Hamilton 4.4 seconds up the road, but we're going to catch that so quickly. But the sun is now out, so that may just help everyone on hards to warm up those compounder tyres they've got on. But either way, we've still got some better pace versus our teammate round the outside, and we demote him down to P7. That P7 that he's gotten so often now in this season, and maybe that is one of the last times we'll be seeing Hamilton in our car. Who knows? Following this episode, but we now move on to lap 32. 4 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Ricciardo's out. Albon's had a mare. Albon's wide. He's locked up or something. He's on the gravel, and this is a replay. Yes, he's had issues. He's locked up and he's made a mistake, and the AI mistakes are coming out in full force this episode, it would seem, and that's gifted Leclerc up into P1. The Ferrari leads. Stroll is now up into second place, so he's really recovered very well indeed. That means now Giovinazzi and Verstappen are fighting for P3 and 4, and we have still got the pace to catch up to them maybe with 4 laps to go. If they squabble enough, we could really be in the money, but this is Ricciardo going out the Grand Prix. He's hit the wall. That's I've never seen an AI crash and break their rear tyre. Very, very rare for that to happen, but you can now see on lap 35, 2 laps to go in this Grand Prix, we nearly do an Albon. We nearly lock up so much that we go off circuit. So you can really see, once again, as has been the case this season, the tyres really playing up, and the tyre wear is really coming to ruse for everyone. Now, even I'm struggling a little bit now with I guess the hotter conditions are making the tyres kind of heat up, and now Stroll's in! What is going on in this race? Stroll is coming in for a pit stop onto the last lap of the Grand Prix. It's an implosion by the Racing Point team. Albon's behind me now on the road, and yes, Stroll comes in. He's got no damage. He's literally come in for a pit stop on the last lap for soft tyres. I guess clearly the Racing Points were struggling more than I thought on the hard tyres. Albon locked up with a mistake due to his tyre wear, and now Stroll's made a precautionary pit stop. So we're up into P4, and we're within 2 seconds of Verstappen and Giovinazzi. Now, Verstappen second on the road, Giovinazzi in third, but with Verstappen having a 5-place penalty, that would elevate Giovinazzi to P2, and as long as I don't make a mistake as we go again very deep into that corner and get very close to the grass there, we're within the 5-second region, so we're going on to somehow finesse this up to a 3rd place, to a podium position, having been last place facing the wrong way at turn 1 on lap 1. Insane. And there is Stroll on soft tyres with a late pit stop. Leclerc comes across the line to win his first race of Season 6. It's a 1-2 for Ferrari as Verstappen drops off from 2nd to 4th, and we've got a podium.
Smiling faces on the pit wall after a superb win here in Spielberg, and rightly so, a brilliant effort from the whole team. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
It was a question of right place, right time today. We were looking at an entirely different race before the safety car came out. but they were able to take full advantage after the field had been bunched up.
Podium, you can see that red suit familiar to fans across the globe. A world-class win for a world-class team. Ferrari do it again.
I don't really know what actually happened in that race. I've not really processed everything because we started off with Hamilton taking me out. That was enough of a kerfuffle in this race. But then we had so many AI mistakes where they just locked up and went wide. We had the calamity at the end where Stroll pits on the last lap as a precaution. And then we had Verstappen who had a penalty, a 5-second one. So it meant that even though he was second on the road, Giovinazzi got up into second. And we somehow went from last to third in this race. When on the first lap, when we made our pit stop, we were 25 seconds behind P18. Absolutely insane. And it means in the championship then, Leclerc is 2 points behind me. Then after him, there is a bit of a drop then as Giovinazzi climbs to third. So both Ferraris looking very strong in the championship. And it just goes to show how much more consistent the Ferraris have been compared to any other team, really. And then there's a bit of a gap, but then it's so close. There's like only a couple of points between Gasly, Stroll, Norris, Verstappen, Albon. It's crazy. And the constructors, though, we're up into second place, actually. Somehow, we've actually climbed the table, but we're now a whopping 42 points back behind the prancing horses. So yeah, if the Hamilton, not scoring points, Hamilton spinning us out wasn't the nail in the coffin, I think looking at the points here is the final third strike of we cannot bridge a 42 deficit on our own if the Ferraris are now going to end up being, double, getting 2 cars on the podium, getting 1-2s if they continue this form now. We just can't do it. We can't bridge that gap in the constructors. So I think we really are going to have to really consider options next episode of who we go out and sign halfway through this season at the end of the episode to replace Hamilton, because I think enough is enough, really. But what a bonkers episode around the Red Bull Ring. Ironically, one that did not feature the Red Bulls that much. If you guys did enjoy the episode, smash the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you are new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.